Hello, I'm here with Robert Gurley, teacher of government and history at Faith Academy. I'm going to ask him a couple questions about project-based learning and its influence in the classroom in the 21st century. So, how do you think that projects contribute to a student's learning process?
Well, I think what's important about projects, it teaches young people how to operate within a team. I always tell them you can't pick who you work with in the future. And a lot of times with project-based learning and a team approach, you have to work with people that normally maybe you wouldn't work with.
So what type of projects do you employ in your classroom?
We do a number of different projects within our government class. I teach government and economics. In our government, they have projects that are around a particular question. In economics, a little bit different. We do a junior achievement kind of model after junior achievement, where the students create a business, they create a business product, they create a business plan, they work together to create the product, sell the product, market the product, make a profit.
Well, I think you got into a little bit to my third question. How have you seen your students grow as a result of this process?
I think for some, they grow by learning how to interact with other people, how to deal with conflict. They also, through this process, I believe, learn that you got to put a lot of thought into creating a business, a lot of thought into where you're going to go in your future. You just can't just let things happen. You've got to think through the process. You've got to be, 5 or 6 steps ahead of the other person.
So you think critical thinking is a skill that will help students in the real world?
Absolutely. I mean, if you just take a look at some of the most successful people, the most successful business owners in our cultures, oftentimes people that stepped outside the normal education box, that did something that, let's say professors and others in institutions would say is not a good thing to do. They stepped outside that box and they were very successful. Take the 2 guys that started Google. They stepped outside the box. They did what other people said you can't do. You can't download the entire internet. They did it. They were able to integrate and put it together, and they created a multi-billion-dollar company. So I think it's important these projects help people step outside the box. Google's 80-20% rule. 20% of the time, work on something that you want to work on. We don't care what it is. Just do something you like. 80% of the time we want you doing what we tell you to do. 20% of the time, create something brand new. Create something from scratch.
Awesome. Well, do you think that the importance of humanities subjects is declining in our modern society?
That's a good question. I still think it's important as a basis and as a foundation. I think the humanities, having a foundation is important for everybody. Having a general education across the board is important. However, I do think having students specialize sooner is also something we need to look at. Kids need to begin to, even in high school, they need to start thinking about the specialty area they want to go in. If they want to go into computer technology, they need to be going to Khan Academy and learning programming. They need to be stepping outside that box of, okay, I'm just going to do exactly what the teachers tell me to do in math and in history and in English. Their specialization needs to start a lot sooner. I think everybody needs that foundation, but I think college, you should be specializing the minute you walk into your freshman year of college. I think through high school you should take care of your foundational academic structure. College should be a lot more focused. There's a lot of times kids waste their time and waste learning while in college when they could be focusing a lot more on certain things.
That's a really good point, and I totally agree with you on that. Do you think lecture is still an important way of teaching, or an effective way of teaching in the 21st century?
I think for a very select few of students, just pure lecture, may be effective. But what I'm seeing with students, a lot of times they tune lecturers out. They don't take notes like they should. Is it learning, or is it just memorizing something to take a test? What I'm trying to say in that, what I've learned in my classroom, I moved to a different model. Basically, every 8 to 10 minutes, we're switching things up. I use an iPad, I use an Apple TV, and so I may discuss an element, and I've got the traditional PowerPoint, and it's got the points. But then immediately I'm going to jump to a graph at Yahoo Finance. Then immediately from there I'm going to jump to the History Channel app and watch a video of 2 minutes. Then I'm going to jump to the PBS app, American Experience, and show another 2 minutes. Then we're going to discuss that, and we're going to apply it to our lives. Then I'm going to pop to a Netflix video that shows, you know, the founder of Apple. Then we're going to pop to another topic. But kids today, they can multitask. They can be texting. They can be on Facebook, they can be surfing the web, they can be doing probably 4 things at one time. Or probably in the classroom while the guy's lecturing, they're doing 5 things at one time. And so if he thinks he can just talk the whole time and he's actually teaching them and they're learning, I think he's a little bit out of touch with what's going on in reality.
I think that's a really good point. And finally, what advice would you give to future history and government teachers?
You're going to know your material, but you need to learn about presentation. You're going to have to know technology. You're going to need to know how to use the iPad, how to use Apple products, how to use the apps, how to go from, and how to be creative. You know, get away from just, oh, I've got my PowerPoint, so I'm going to be the best teacher on the planet. Your PowerPoint is just layer 1. You know, that's 20% of it. The other 80% is going to be, you know, actually of the 80%, 20 is going to be your lecture. Then the other, well, that gives us 60%, is going to be you popping from video to graph technology to things like Khan Academy, to things like the History Channel app, to Educreations, where you're able to draw and show graphings of what you're talking about. I think you're going to have to be multifaceted or you're going to lose the kids.
That's a really good point. Well, I want to thank you for having me, Mr. Gurley. It's been a pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, my favorite government teacher.